Hey everybody, and welcome to the Go Vegan Group, their weekly show where we're educating you and inspiring you to either adopt a plant-based, or if you're already plant-based and vegan. And we have a very special show today because today's show we have vegan businesses or vegan vending that you to do. And we've got Katrina Fox on, who's the author of Vegan Ventures, and she's going to share a lot of information about type business and advice in it, what she's learned from all over the world who she's interviewed, and that's what the book came about. So Katrina, can you hear me okay, Katrina?
I didn't catch you then. I think we're having a few tech issues, so I might have to get you to repeat the question. So I didn't hear that last bit. You're dropping it out.
Okay. Just saying, Katrina, your time is very valuable and you're a busy lady. So, looking for what you're going to share with both myself, I'm looking to learning a lot, and also then for our viewers. So just welcome to the call, and thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Dave. It's good to be here.
What I want to start off with at the very start, Katrina, is, just about you personally, your own personal journey in becoming vegan and plant-based, all before even, you set up this business and wrote Vegan Ventures and everything that went with that. Tell us a bit about you and your background, because I know you were originarian for a long time, and then you vegan, I think, later. So tell us a bit about your journey and, from all the way up along.
Sure, I'll do it in a nutshell so that I can, spend time sharing the useful information about running a vegan business. But just briefly, I'm from the UK originally, lived in London until 2001, and then my partner and I moved to Sydney. I went vegetarian when I was 11 after I asked my mum what the beef burger that she was serving us was made of, and when I found out it was from a cow, I was absolutely horrified. And I then figured out that fish fingers were made of fish and chicken was made of an actual chicken. And I just said, I'm not eating animals anymore. I didn't know the word vegetarian or anything. I just knew I didn't want to eat animals. I'd always had a bit of an affinity with animals. My cat Kitty was my best friend. It wasn't until the mid-90s, I hadn't heard of veganism. Even though in the late 80s I did some animal rights activism, I didn't know about veganism until the mid-90s when I was on an animal rights demonstration against a farm that bred kittens for vivisection. And a lovely woman called Kay was sitting next to me on the coach. We were going up to do this big national demo, and I offered her a cheese and Marmite sandwich, and she explained that she was vegan and didn't eat cheese, and explained the cruelty in the dairy industry and eggs. And I was like, oh wow. And I got a copy of The Animal Free Shopper from the Vegan Society in the UK, and I was really gobsmacked as to how much we exploit and use animals, how many types of animal ingredients are in all our everyday products. And I thought, how could I not have known this? So I was one of those people that when I did find the truth, I pretty much went vegan overnight, and haven't looked back since.
Excellent. Great. And so that was your motivation initially. That's what spurred you on to move from being veggie to vegan, and it became an overnight. And is that something?
Sorry, when I say overnight, I mean I made the decision to go vegan then and there. It took me a little while to replace certain things like shoes, for example. But yeah. I made the decision to go vegan and to eliminate animal products as quickly as I could.
Excellent. Because again, everyone varies. Like, it's even for myself personally. Like I adopted a plant-based vegan lifestyle in January 2012. That's when I made the decision, just before 211 ended. And for me, it was like a 7-year journey. Like, my wife is vegan 11 years, my son since birth, so he was 10. And it was through watching them and educating myself and becoming open-minded to what was out there that eventually I made that move. But, some people, it can be like they see something and they go for it. Like some clients I've coached, they've literally gone from going to a seminar I've held, and the next day they're vegan. Others then, like myself, were a bit more stubborn and took a bit longer. But I suppose the main thing is that, you're moving that direction. You know, it's like for yourself, you were veggie for a long time, and then you became more aware of some more information, and then you went vegan. So, you know, it's great, and it's great the way the movement is growing. Like, have you noticed a lot in the last 10 years, you know, in terms of the whole movement, the whole plant-based movement? What type of changes have you seen? How, you know, has it been as fast as you expected, or a bit slower? Or, you know, what's your perspective on that?
Well, I think, you know, as someone who is an animal rights advocate and, you know, very much all about the philosophy of veganism as a social justice movement to stop animal exploitation, commodification, it's going very slow in a lot of ways because, you know, we want to see things happen much more quickly. However, certainly in the past, I'd say probably 3 years, because I'm a journalist, so I've been a journalist for about 18 years now, and certainly in the past over 2 to 3 years, I've never seen such positive media coverage about veganism in mainstream media as well, in media outlets that you just wouldn't think of that would be sympathetic to veganism. These are the media outlets that would take the mickey out of and mock vegans and animal rights activists, you know, calling us extreme and weird and, you know, unwashed hippies and all these kind of insults. Not that there's anything wrong with being hippie or anything, but, you know, they've mocked us for many years, and now finally they're actually starting to take us seriously, you know, publishing really positive articles. So I think that's definitely been a big shift, and I think that's been combined with the growth of vegan businesses, of vegan-run businesses. You've got people like Bill Gates, Microsoft founder, and other high-profile investors investing in plant-based vegan companies. So I think there's definitely been a shift in the past 2 to 3 years. There's obviously still a long way to go because I think there is a plant-based movement which comes more from health, which is really more of a selfish thing. And, you know, if something else comes along, some people are likely to drop it. And then you've got veganism, which is the philosophy, which is about, you know, not supporting animal exploitation and commodification. So I'd like to see more happening on that front, so that businesses are run on ethical vegan principles, not just plant-based, which is for our own purpose, but from a vegan perspective, which is good for us, it's good for people, and it's good for the planet.
Definitely. Like with that, I've noticed, like, you know, a big shift for sure. And even the last couple of years, like before moving to Lanzarote this year, you know, I lived in Liverpool for over 2 years. And even in that time span, it went from, you know, one vegan shop opened a few months after I arrived. And then some restaurants had some vegan options, you know, but mainly normal, what we consider normal options in the mainstream world. But when I left then in August this year, there was about 4 or 5 purely vegan restaurants. Many restaurants in the city had vegan menus, and there were many more restaurants coming on board since, plus many more shops and even pizza delivery. And, you know, it's become a lot easier for, say, like Liverpool, and I know London, obviously, there's massive choice, but it is certainly great to see, you know, I know what you mean in terms of, you know, it's not fast enough, but obviously it's accelerating, which is good. Of course, it will never be fast enough for the animals, especially.
Yeah. What's really good though, Dave, I'm finding is that not only are there more and more businesses, they're becoming very creative. So like you said, there's now all vegan pizza places. There are people starting up businesses focusing on different types of vegan food, like Greek vegan or Lebanese vegan. So they're getting like even more niche within the vegan business market, which is really exciting. I'm really, really happy about that. There's a place just opened in Sydney that's an all vegan fish and chip shop, you know, and okay, it's not healthy, you know, but it's great. And it's like, well, you know, this is what we want to see. Far better that people go to somewhere like that and know that, you know, they don't have to give up what they want. I think that's a bit of a misconception around veganism. People panic and go, oh no, that means I can't have this, I can't have that, I've got to give up all my favorite things. Whereas you don't. I think it's really important to reframe it and say, no, you don't actually have to give up. Pretty much anything can be veganized, from our food to our clothes. And, you know, you can still be fabulous and stylish and completely decadent and enjoy all your favorite desserts and food, just a vegan version of them. So I'm really excited to see that happening, and I expect to see and hope to see that continuing into 2016.
For sure. Like definitely from a transitioning point of view, for people who are moving, whether it be from their meat-based diet or a veggie diet to move to vegan, I just said there's a bit of a fear factor there. And it is important that there is, both in grocery shopping, there's transitional foods. And while it's mainly processed, not ideal, there definitely is a place for it for a certain phase until it becomes more and more whole food and more kind of raw based. And like that restaurant, you know, it's like burritos, pizzas, hot dogs, all these kind of foods. It's great to have it because it encourages veggie and meat-based people to at least give it a go. And even from a social point of view, that people who have meat-eating friends, that they can still go there once they're open-minded enough to try it.
That's right. I mean, cheese is the other big thing. You know, you hear a lot of people, particularly even vegetarians and also meat eaters, go, well, okay, I can give up the meat, but I couldn't give up my cheese. And fortunately, now there are amazing vegan cheeses. When I went vegan back in 1996, which is almost 20 years ago, the vegan cheeses that were around were horrible. They tasted like rubber and they were pretty disgusting. And now you've just got these amazing range of all different types of vegan cheeses. There are vegan cheese, like fromageries opening. One's opened in New York. There's one already in Los Angeles. Hopefully we'll see that happening now in some European cities and some Australian cities. So that's really exciting because people realize, well, okay, you know, I don't have to have dairy cheese. I can, you know, try some of these others. And some of them are really quite healthy. They're organic. Yoko's cheese is amazing. I absolutely love that. Obviously, with giving up dairy, there's something in dairy, as you probably know, Dave, the casein, which is addictive. It's a morphine derivative. So there is actually a physical thing about, you know, giving up cheese, but you know, people can do it. You know, you can kick the cheese habit, and certainly having vegan cheese is certainly like you say, a really good transition for people, so they don't have to give up the taste.
Definitely. No, the cheese definitely is a big one. You know, as I said, it's got that addictive property and it's craving, and you know, people use cheese in absolutely everything. So you know, it definitely is a difficult one for people to give up or to even see a. You know, that's all part of the fear factor. And it definitely, the difference, I remember like tasting even something like soya milk, maybe it was what, 10, I suppose my wife went vegan first 10, 11 years ago, and it was absolutely disgusting. And it's just amazing the difference now. And the range of milks, of dairy milk.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's so much easier, and I think that's where vegan businesses play a really important part in making it as easy as possible for people to choose animal-free, to choose cruelty-free. I see vegan, you know, running a vegan business is a form of activism, and I'm really excited to see more and more vegan-run businesses coming up.
Yeah, and for vegan businesses, you know, obviously there's. You know, they're businesses, but also for majority, I presume, nearly all of the owners, you know, it's not just an opportunity they're seeing. It's, you know, there is obviously an ethical reason that they're setting that up for the majority of people, and animal rights and so on. How do you see and advise, or even what you learn from all different entrepreneurs, getting that balance right between running it as a business and being ethical without being, you know, too much for certain people? Because obviously you want to attract the people in who, you know, maybe aren't vegan, because you know that's the market you want to draw to convert, for want of a better word. But it can't be too pushy, would say. How would you personally advise, and how from the entrepreneurs you've interviewed do they advise people get the balance right?
It's a really great question. I'm glad you asked that. There's actually a whole chapter on it in the book that I wrote called Vegan Ventures, on should I use the word vegan, or how much should I use the word vegan in my marketing and branding? And there were so many different responses, and the answer is it depends. There's no right or wrong answer. A lot of businesses started out, like some of the businesses that have been in existence for quite a while, they even had the word vegan either in their company name, or certainly it was very much in their branding, because initially their market was vegans. You know, they wanted to provide vegan food, vegan clothing, skincare, the whole lot for vegans, for people who've gone vegan. Nowadays, because now we've seen this shift, more and more people are coming on board, and you're not just, as a vegan business, you're very rarely only marketing to the vegan market. You know, you actually want to have a far bigger, broader market, like you say, to bring them in, show them that, you know, they can have a fabulous pair of shoes, or, you know, delicious food. And so, you know, you've got to make that decision as to how much or where and how often you use the word vegan. Some of the people that I interviewed and spoke to, they're very adamant. They're proud of the word vegan. They want to destigmatize it, so they're using it, you know, right up front. Others are using it maybe a little bit within their marketing, but they're not kind of, you know, it's not the main focus. So there really is, it really does depend on your business and who you're trying to target and what your values are. You know, so I think that can be partly a personal decision. It's also partly what the market will stand, kind of thing as well. Like there's one cafe I'm thinking of in Sydney, out in the mountains, that they haven't got vegan in their name, but they do have a little notice up that explaining why they don't use dairy milk for their coffee, so that people, they know, they're educated, but they're not walking in and, you know, it's kind of in your face, this is all vegan, or, you know, a picture of, you know, animals being tortured or something. So I think it's very much a mixed bag about how you market and promote your business, and it really comes down to, sometimes it can be down to trying it out. There are some businesses that started out using the word vegan and then they got very negative reactions from their customers, and now they've stopped using it and they're using plant-based. So there's very, very different perspectives on this. Obviously, you need to do what you need to do to stay in business so that you can educate. So it really is different for every business.
For sure, because it is all branding, but that's the unfortunate side of things, that the word vegan has some negative connotations with people, you know. So I suppose it's trying to override that, or definitely plant-based is quite a good phrase to use, and I have seen that being used more and more myself with different businesses. For, you know, we have people on, and I have friends on who will be on hopefully right now watching, and, you know, they either have businesses that are, some are just a few months old, some are, you know, what is it, maybe 2 years old, and I have other people I know who will be on who it's something they'd love to do, but there is a bit of a fear element, or they're just not sure how to go about it. And even for myself, like obviously, you know, since January 2012, I've coached a lot of people to adopt a plant-based lifestyle. I recommend it to people I come across. I've done seminar stuff like that. But in 2016, one of our goals is to set up a vegan restaurant and shop cafe here in Lanzarote, because, you know, it's a market, like Spain is a market that's a bit behind, but we can see it's starting to get a hold. So, you know, it's a good time, I feel, to get involved in it, and something that we're very passionate about anyway, and a different type of venture to what we're used to. So pretty excited about that. So even for me, I'm new to setting up a vegan type business. You know, what's the kind of advice, or what is, actually, let's start with, what are the kind of difficulties that you've encountered and seen from the different entrepreneurs or yourself in setting up that business originally?
Well, obviously there are different types of vegan businesses. So there are things like you mentioned, as in, you know, vegan cafes, vegan restaurants, vegan shoe stores, that kind of thing. And then there's businesses that are more consulting or coaching. And I think there can be differences in the approach that you take there. So some of the challenges for, say, people who sell products is, as we mentioned, is getting over that use of the word vegan, or getting over those stereotypes of the word vegan. And I think we are seeing a shift now in that, you know, some celebrities are calling themselves vegan, and the word itself is becoming a bit more user-friendly, shall we say. People are warming to it. They're starting to associate it with different things other than, you know, boring and bland. So I think one of the challenges is to continue to overcome those kind of misconceptions around veganism. I think sometimes with raw materials, because if you're a small business, you don't have access to the bulk discounts that a lot of, you know, large companies have access to, particularly if you're running your business on in an ethical way. So vegan, you know, animal-free products, organic, fair trade. So that can be a little bit of a challenge. You know, you need to explain to your customers why your products are, you know, a bit more expensive. Until we get the mainstream, you know, buying, until organic and fair trade and cruelty free becomes mainstream and becomes the norm, then, you know, sometimes certain things do need to be a bit more expensive. So I think it's really important to explain to your customers why that is. You know, share the stories behind you, behind your brand, behind your products, so that they, you know, they kind of go, okay, yeah, I understand why I'm having to pay a bit more for this, and I'm willing to do it because it's an ethical product. So I think they're the kind of the key things to be aware of. It's interesting though, starting up a vegan run business, there are a lot of things that are the same as starting up any business. The reason I wrote Vegan Ventures is because I wanted to, you know, discuss or find out what the specific challenges were for vegan-run businesses, for ethical businesses, and how they overcame them. So I think they're the key things. You know, being an ethical business, you're constantly doing research, you know, on your products and your services to make sure to get them as ethical as possible. So that means being animal-free, and also it means as much as you possibly can, you know, using fair trade, using organic, you know, so that you're thinking about people, animals, and planet when you're producing your products and services. So it involves a lot of research, a lot of commitment, constantly looking at how you can innovate, because of course now you're no longer the vegan cheese or the vegan milk or the vegan shoe company. You're now actually, and I put it in quote marks, competing with other vegan businesses. So you've got to figure out, how do I stand out? What can I do differently? So those are some of the challenges and some of the solutions.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. And you said it, you know, touched there on, you know, what stimulated you in the first place to write the book, you know, in terms of the whole ethical and giving people a guideline on how to set up a business. And, you know, you interviewed many top entrepreneurs all over the world. You jet set it everywhere, compile all these interviews, and then create Vegan Ventures, the book itself, which is a fantastic project. And, you know, well done on it. Congratulations. And it's great to see it having so much success and coverage so far. Tell us a bit about some of the entrepreneurs and businesses that you did from different parts of the world that you did interview, and some of the key tips that you got from them.
Yeah, so I interviewed people from the US, the UK, Australia, and Canada. I kept it to those countries because it just would have gotten too unwieldy otherwise. The criteria was that they had to be in business for a minimum of 5 years, because in some ways it's easy to start a business, you know, because you're all excited and it's this new project. Maintaining it can be the challenge. So I figured someone who's been in business at least 5 years is going to have some useful insights to share, because when you're starting out and at 5 years' time, you know, you're going to have learned quite a lot. Some of them have been in business for 10, 20, 30, even 40 odd years. I think Planel in the UK has been in business the longest out of the interviewees. They've been around since the 60s. So I wanted to get a real range of people, because I didn't want to just interview companies, you know, that had 200 or 300 employees or chains that were very successful. They're definitely in there, but I didn't want people to, you know, like a sole trader, you know, someone who's just looking to start out to kind of think, oh, well, I couldn't do that. So I also made sure that I interviewed a lot of people that were solo business owners, or maybe they've just got 1 or 2 employees. Some offered products, some offered services. So I really wanted to get a diverse range so that people could have a feel of what's possible and to say, yes, I can do this. So it's a practical guide, because I want people to know what they're in for, because running a business, you know, it's not all smooth sailing. There is a lot of work involved, and a lot of commitment, a lot of time needed. As well as being inspirational too, as you say, because you mentioned the fear factor earlier, and I think a lot of people are put off by that. You know, they have this idea, or they have this, what they see as a pipe dream of, oh, I'd love to run a vegan business one day, but they don't have the skills, or they don't have the confidence to go ahead with that. So I really would like the book to inspire people to do that, as well as giving them a lot of practical tips from, as you say, some really amazing vegan business owners and entrepreneurs across the world who've been doing this. And they were very, very honest and shared some of their challenges and how they overcame them. So there's a whole host of tips in the book from them. And some of the tips will be different as well, like almost opposite to one another. And I do acknowledge that in the introduction, because, you know, someone might say, well, this worked for me. And another business owner might say, no, that didn't work for me, but this worked for me. So it's really about making aware of, you know, some of the issues, some of the challenges they might come up against, and some possible solutions that they can try.
Definitely, because at the end of the day, every business is going to be unique, and every person is unique in themselves and their own beliefs and their own reasons for setting that up in the first place. And definitely agree with you in terms of business. You know, it is actually quite good that you did interview people with 5 years of business experience at least, because definitely there's that enthusiasm at the start, and you know, businesses even aren't expected to do too well in the first 2-3 years anyway. So you need to kind of hit that 4 or 5 year mark to actually show that, look, I'm here to stay, because I've gone through, overcome many challenges most likely, and have got through good times and bad times, and have become established. So that's been fantastic.
Right. Yeah. That's exactly right, Dave. And also the fact some of the people I interviewed, some of them were running their business part-time, so they actually had a regular part-time job or even a full-time job and were running their businesses on the side, and others, and then they eventually moved into running it full-time. So that's another way as well, because I think sometimes people think, oh, if I'm going to start a business, I've got to quit my job now and just kind of go for it. That's fine if you've got savings or if you've got capital behind you, but if not, you can actually start something, depending on what it is. You can actually start something part-time while you've still got your regular income coming in, and then only once the business itself starts to generate enough income, then maybe you go part-time, then maybe you quit your job altogether. So I think that's probably quite an important tip that a lot of the entrepreneurs said as well, that you don't necessarily have to just kind of jump feet first, without that sort of safety net of regular income coming in. Because when you're starting up a business, you don't want to appear desperate. No one really wants to buy from someone who's desperate, because I think we can tell when someone's not looking at you around them. So there are different ways of starting up a business. As I mentioned, there's different types of business. There's online business as well as having physical local stores. They have their own challenges. If you've got a physical location, you've got to be very much aware that you've got enough market of people to come into your store, and they're not likely to just be vegan or vegetarian. That's why you're going to have to start appealing to more mainstream people. Or you could have an online business. So there's lots of different ways you can do that.
And for I suppose the vegan entrepreneur, a lot of time is quite different in terms of, a lot of their motivation for setting up their business is again for ethical reasons, for animals and for the planet and stuff like that. So, what I would see from friends I have and people I've come across, that they didn't actually start out as your typical business person or typical entrepreneur, and they nearly had to learn those skills because they went into it from passion. That was what they went into it from, and it was quite a rude awakening of how the business world works and how to compete. And one stumbling block mentally, as much as anything, I would have seen with some friends of mine with their businesses, was especially if they had cafes or say like shops, how to compete against the big boys, because obviously they need to be more expensive because the products are more expensive with being organic and fair trade, and there isn't as much demand for those products yet. And how, for instance, like in the UK, a small vegan store competing then against the big stores like Tesco's and Asda's, and every country has its equivalents. What are the kind of tips that some of the entrepreneurs and people gave in the book in terms of how to compete against them? In terms, especially, I suppose it's nearly a more mental thing than even a business thing.
Well, I think the short answer to that is you actually don't compete against them. You can't. A small business, ethical business, you can't. You're not in that league. It's a different market. I interviewed Jessica Bailey, who runs the Cruelty Free shop here in Sydney, Australia, and she's also got a branch in Melbourne. And that's pretty much what she said to me. She said they're not my competition. She said I can't compete with them. So yes, things will be more expensive in my shop. So what happens is, if the mainstream stores, like if the big supermarkets like in the UK, like Sainsbury's or Tesco, whatever, if they start stocking a product that you're stocking as a small ethical business owner, and obviously they're going to charge less for it, then what that does is it actually makes you innovate even more. So you might go, okay, well, now that that's available in all the mainstream stores, I'm going to stop stocking that product. What else can I get that the big supermarkets are not stocking? So I think it actually, in some ways, it can be quite good, because it keeps you on your toes as an ethical business owner, because it means you've got to constantly innovate. And I know if I go into the Cruelty Free shop, I'm going to find things I haven't even heard of, all these amazing veganized versions of things that I had no idea even existed. I know that I'm not going to be able to get those in Coles, which is sort of equivalent of Sainsbury's, Tesco's here. And so I think you just have to constantly innovate and not think of the supermarkets as your competition, because you can't compete with them. Instead, you have to stand out, become renowned for being an innovative and specialist and quality store.
Excellent, great answer, and 100% with that. With friends of mine, say in Liverpool, who opened a vegan store in terms of a shop, and now it's become like a cafe and a bit of a takeout service, and they're going to delivery soon. But that was a big thing for them starting out. They were constantly thinking of the Tesco down the road and their prices. And when people would say, oh, you're so expensive, you know, it really got to them. And that was the thing I used to stress to them, that, you know, you just have to focus on being unique, you know, focus on being different, because that is what's going to make you stand out. And what I really loved of what they ended up creating, because again, they came into this as a passion. That's why they did it. They created a community. So it wasn't like you go into a normal shop, get your product, go to the counter, go to your automatic services with no people, or it might be someone at a till. But it's just a transaction. Instead, they were forming relationships where people were coming in and they might be there for an hour, just having a chat and sharing information, or they might have just become curious about plant-based and vegan, and just having a chat about that, and they leave more informed. And in time, many of them, I'm sure, did convert to becoming vegan, or at least more or less that way. So I suppose that's an important thing. They do need to be more community-based in terms of their facilities.
That's really important, because I think relationships are so important, and particularly even more, I mean, they always have been, but even more so nowadays, where people can go online and write reviews, you know, developing a relationship with your customers, and really giving really high quality service. You know, people want that. Like you say, they can go into the big supermarkets and it's just a transaction. It's a bit almost zombified, and everybody's just like, you know, doing their thing. And when you go into those places and you get that such high level of customer service, you know, where the business owner obviously cares about you, they're interested in you. We love that as human beings. So, you know, we're going to go back to that. We're going to tell our friends and family, you know, oh, I went to this vegan store and they were lovely, you know, and this was nice, and they were so kind. You know, you should go and check it out. That word of mouth is so important. And I think that's, people don't say that with, oh, you've got to go to Sainsbury's. I had such an amazing experience. Exactly. They don't do that, so you can actually use yeah, so you can use that to your advantage, you know, as you say, to become more than just a store or just a business. You actually become something that is creating that sense of community and tribe, because that's what will really help to keep you in business, particularly, you know, if you have the economic downturns. One of the questions I asked the interviewees that have been in business for a long time was, you know, when we had the big GFC, global financial crisis in 2008, you know, they weathered the storm, and one of their questions was, their responses was that they had built up such a loyal clientele and sense of community that nevertheless, despite the economic downturn, people still bought. I mean, some of them, you know, they survived by the skin of their teeth, but they still survived because they had that community of loyal clientele that wanted them to stay in business. One of the business owners said to me, you know, people come here as a restaurant, people come here because they want to support us. You know, so when you can create that level of community and loyalty, that's what can really help your business survive in the long term.
Definitely. I'm interested to switch gears to another angle. Interested in your opinion, plus maybe it came up with some entrepreneurs around the world that might be in the book as well. Just thoughts on, say, like celebrities. Obviously, celebrities promoting a vegan-based lifestyle. That's where a lot of the negativity is generated, unfortunately. But also, there's a lot of positivity. Like you take like the Joaquin Phoenix and what he has done, versus some of the kind of fly-by-night celebs who've fleeted in and out of vegan lifestyle just for a quick fat loss or whatever it might be. But what's the kind of feelings towards, say, someone like Beyonce, who's gone and set up her business? Because I know when she set up her vegan delivery business, you know, even online there was a lot of negativity and there's a lot of positivity. So there was kind of two sides fighting all the time. Now, what's your take on a celeb going into a venture like that, and even some of the entrepreneurs that you interviewed, if maybe it came up?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, because it is frustrating when you get people, celebrities, you know, calling themselves vegan, and then they just kind of flake out, like you said, a bit of a fly-by-night. It obviously is disappointing and it's frustrating, but I try and look on the positive side of it, because at least they've raised some issues and raised some awareness around it. In terms of someone like Beyonce, I mean, look, her business is a plant-based delivery service, and I think this is important where there's the distinction, because I did hear that apparently she went to a vegan restaurant in a fur coat. So there's a little bit of a disconnect there. So sometimes and this is, I suppose, with terminology, so when you start using the word vegan versus plant-based, it can get a bit tricky, and I think that's where some you know, animal advocates and vegan advocates get quite frustrated, because they feel like the word vegan is being diluted to, you know, just a plant-based diet, when it's much more than that. As I mentioned, it is a whole philosophy about not supporting animal exploitation. But I think with Beyonce, look, she started a plant-based delivery service. I celebrate that. isn't it better that she starts a plant-based delivery service than a meat-based one? She could easily have started some paleo business with heavy meat, but she started a plant-based. So I would celebrate that. I think that's a great thing. More and more people are learning about the benefits of plant-based food through her starting that up. I think that's a positive thing. So in terms of celebrities, yes, the ones that are, you know, long term are really in it for the ethics and they're not flaking out. People like Moby, Emily Deschanel, star of Bones, you know, Pam Anderson, you know, she's just launched some vegan UGG boots, which I think is fantastic. Yeah. Great message. She's saying, look, I made UGG boots popular. Should I feel really awful about it? But now, you know, here's some really cool ones, and they're apparently made of TV screens, which is, you know, recycled television screens. So I think we have to just sort of support obviously the ones who are vegan and long term. But, you know, if someone's raising awareness of animal issues and animal cruelty and they've got a really big platform, I think I try and look on the bright side and say, look, they are doing something positive. Obviously, it's disappointing when they then kind of change their minds, but, you know, there's not much we can do to control that. I think that's just, we as advocates have to keep, you know, putting it out there, keep educating, keep doing things like you're doing, Dave, with these interview series, keep doing our bits, and bring on more celebrities who are in it for the long run, so that we're all using whatever platforms we've got to do our best to educate and bring people around to vegan living.
Definitely. Like as I always say, that, you know, if we can all just do a little bit, and a lot of people doing a little, it'll eventually bring a mass change among the masses, because it is all about awareness. And that's why, you know, again, in the last couple of years, I see such a big shift and such a movement all over the world, not just in certain countries, which is fantastic to see. Obviously, you got places like Berlin, which are incredibly vegan friendly, and you got somewhere like, say, Lanzarote, up to what, 6 weeks ago, didn't even have anything to do with vegan. It was quite difficult to get products, and now has 2 vegan restaurants and a vegan shop. And as I said, we're going to do our own venture next year as well. So that, you know, things are really starting to move. And I'm definitely agree with you 100% with the celeb side of things, that, you know, we need to focus on the positive. It's like even a post I put up on our page recently, maybe it's a week or 2 ago, with the announcement that Ben & Jerry's is bringing out dairy-free range, and it's going to be using almond milk and coconut milk and stuff like that instead of its dairy. And there was a huge reaction to it. There was lots of positive comments, and there was lots and lots of negative comments about how can you support a company that has had an impact on killing so many animals and exploitation and so on. And, you know, I'm totally with you on, we need to focus on the positive, because they're such a huge company. They are the leaders in ice cream in the world, basically. And if they're doing something that's promoting a vegan-based product, a dairy-free product, and providing that service, well, the demand is naturally going to grow, whether it be from people trying it out, or then you've got all the plant-based vegan people wanting to use it, or lactose intolerant and so on. So it can only grow bigger and bigger, and then other companies are going to obviously copy Ben & Jerry's to create their own dairy-free range, and then there's even more dairy-free ice cream out there. And the more, again, big companies or celebs that can come in and do this, surely it's better for the whole movement.
It is. I mean, there's the 2 arguments to that, which I really understand both of them. There is the one of, well, okay, by buying that dairy-free ice cream, we're also supporting a company that's, you know, supporting a very cruel industry. But on the other hand, if more and more people buy that product, then maybe the Ben & Jerry's or whatever company will produce more and more and eventually go all vegan. I mean, that's the kind of, that would obviously be the ideal for those companies to go completely vegan. And we've seen on a smaller scale in Sydney, certainly, and I think in Texas in the US, mainstream restaurants going all vegan, which is really quite exciting. I'd love to see some of those bigger companies do that, rather than just jumping on a bandwagon of a market, because I can see that argument. And because then you've got companies like Clamor, who I mentioned in the UK, that have been around since the 60s. And, you know, everything they've made, it's in a dedicated manufacturing facility free of animal products. And so, you know, it's like, well, yeah, we should be rewarding them, you know, because they are being really ethical. So it's an interesting one. I think it's a new situation or a new scenario that we're seeing ourselves in now, where we are seeing some of these big companies going, oh, vegan market's growing, maybe we should get in on that. And maybe they're not coming from an ethical perspective. Let's be honest, some of them are going to be coming from a money spinning perspective of a market's growing. So it's It's a tricky one. I think we're sort of just kind of figuring that out, which is why we're seeing some of these debates online. And I'm not saying there's necessarily a right or a wrong answer. I think it's something that we're just going to have to consider and think about. I mean, certainly, you know, if we don't buy the Ben and Jerry's product, then they may well turn and say, oh, there isn't enough of a market, so we might as well dump it. So, you know, I can see both of those arguments, as well as, you know, yeah, we really want to be supporting the ethical vegan business companies as well. So I'm not sure. I think the jury's sort of a little bit divided on that one at the moment.
I think it's a situation where really everybody's actually right in their own way, because, you know, both sides, again, the argument, there's, you know, justification in it, you know, so. Guinness, for example, the beer has gone vegan, and also I posted on the Vegan Business Media Facebook page recently a champagne company, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, they've gone completely vegan as well. So that's quite encouraging, I think, where we're seeing, you know, we're maybe starting to see these large companies go completely vegan, which is quite exciting. So I hope that's a trend that's going to continue as well. And even Guinness is now going vegan, which was quite a shock to hear. You know, have you ever seen the Irish thing? Yeah, so that was a shock. And that caused a lot of uproar online. I remember on boards and like chat rooms and everything, like people going crazy over it. And, you know, like, I suppose the argument from the plant-based side is, you know, do you prefer to be going through fish guts or through what the new ways can be plant-based? But some people can be, again, so closed that they don't even see what they're having. They actually prefer to just be put through that kind of stuff and just stay in the dark as to what the reality is, when it should really disgust them. But that's where, again, some people are going to be open-minded and move towards plant-based lifestyle, and others are never, ever, no matter what they're exposed to. And that's just, again, part of the challenge.
It is. Well, you never know when people are going to shift. I mean, if you look at someone like Howard Lyman, who's the former dairy farmer, cattle farmer, and now he's a vegan advocate. You've got Bob Comis, who's there's going to be a film being made about him called The Last Pig. You know, he's a former so-called humane pig farmer. He's finally seen the light and has gone vegan. So we never know. You know, even people that you would think would never ever change. I think it's important not to lose hope, because you never know when someone's going to have an epiphany for whatever reason. So I like to stay optimistic.
Yeah, definitely. It's like an example I can think of straight off is even a seminar I ran in Liverpool about adopting plant-based vegan lifestyle and dairy, and, you know, just revealing the truth from what I had learned and experienced myself. And there was one lady there, and she just came on her own, and basically the next day she went vegan. So she was overnight, and she went on I've a coaching program on helping people adopt a plant-based lifestyle. But she made her husband sit down and watch Earthlings with her. He just said it's all propaganda, it's a load of rubbish, and all this kind of thing. And he was so against it. And she wanted her kids and all to be vegan straight away. But obviously when they're a family and he was so against it, she couldn't quite do that. But basically, I think it might have been 3 months, 4 months later, just from feeding little bits of information, his own curiosity, eating plant-based food at dinner that he didn't even realize was plant-based, he went 100% vegan. And he was one, being honest, but I never thought I'd see the day. But now their entire family, the mother, the father, and the 2 children are all 100% vegan. So it was fantastic to see. So as you said, you can never lose hope with anyone.
That's right.
I want to go back to your book, Vegan Ventures, and, you know, give us a bit of a summary of the different chapters, and maybe just, you know, what the chapters are and a little bit on each one, so people can be a bit clearer on what it's about, and just see again how powerful this compiled information is.
Sure. So it's a practical and inspirational guide. So it's a how-to guide on how to start and grow a vegan-run business. So basically, we start with the why. So as you mentioned earlier, a lot of vegan business owners, they start up their businesses because of a passion. They've got a greater purpose. They're not starting it solely to make money. Now, of course, you have to make money to stay in business, otherwise it's a hobby. But
attention,
they're testing the fire alarm. Sorry about that.
I wonder where that is coming from.
Okay.
Gone now.
Yeah, I think they're going to make a loud noise in a moment. But I'll talk, and there we go. Hang on. I don't know if you can edit this It won't be long.
Oh, that's entertainment.
Okay. I'm hoping it's finished. So vegan business owners have a mission, they have a why, a bigger purpose in starting up their business. So the first chapter looks at that to get very clear on your why. We're just going to have a bit of a noise and then it'll stop.
Sure.
So that's the first chapter, start with the why. The second chapter is about mindset, and that's really, really important to not only work on yourself, but work on your business.
Testing of the emergency warning system is now complete. Thank you.
Awesome, it's complete. Okay, sorry about that little technical interruption.
Okay.
Mindset is important when running a vegan business. You've got to either, if you've got those qualities, or you need to develop certain qualities, particularly resilience, in order to run your business. So I dedicate a chapter to that. And then we look at relationships. So relationships with your staff, with yourself, with your clients, with your suppliers, relationships online. So we really look at the importance of relationships. And then we go into things around branding. There's a whole chapter on branding, including, and there was also a chapter on, as I mentioned earlier, how much should I use the word vegan in my branding and marketing, and lots of the entrepreneurs give tips on around that. And then the rest of the chapters are around marketing. So marketing, media, PR, social media, other or offline ways of marketing. And then the final section is the afterword, where I asked all of the entrepreneurs what were the key lessons that they learned. So it really is a practical and inspirational guide how to, there's setup and systems, that's another chapter I missed out. So setting up your different systems that you'll need, that kind of thing. So it's very practical, and it's interspersed with insights from the vegan business owners and entrepreneurs to illustrate those relevant points.
Brilliant. And if someone wants to get a copy of your book, Katrina, you know, where can they get it? And if you have a copy there beside you, actually, show it up there on the screen, if you happen to have a copy beside you.
Yeah, so it's on Amazon, so you can certainly go to amazon.com or amazon.co.uk. Otherwise, you can, if you want the ebook, you can order that from Amazon, or you can also go to veganbusinessmedia.com/vegan-ventures, or if you just go to veganbusinessmedia.com, there's a picture of the book, and that tells you a lot more information about it and where you can buy it. So it's available at online retailers and e-tailers. You could go to your store, your regular bookstore, and ask them to order it in, or otherwise from Amazon. Brilliant.
So encourage everyone, you know, who's hearing this, whether it be you're on live or you happen to see this recording, you know, get out there, get this book. You know, if it's a case of you are already in business, running a vegan-based business, or something that maybe you're quite interested in, you know, something that, you know, you fancy the opportunity to take your passion, take your ethics, and turn that into a business, and let this book guide you through it step by step. Because the whole thing is, it's not that you shouldn't be trying to reinvent the wheel. You know, Katrina has interviewed so many entrepreneurs from all over the world. As she said, they had 5 years minimum, some up to 40 years. These are the kind of people you need to learn from, more than just going in straight off, you know, raw. And especially, as I said, and I know from friends of mine, that most people who start a business, it's purely from passion. They don't even have any entrepreneurial flair or anything. They're actually driven by their passion. So it is quite a rude awakening when you go into the business world, because it's very different to what you ever perceived it as. So I would see this book as a near necessity of an investment. So check it out. The links will be below of where you can go and order it when you check out the video. Katrina, I just want to thank you so much for being on. You know, I know it's early over there in Sydney, and you know, you're a very in-demand lady, and you're a very busy business. And it's just been a pleasure to be on. And you know, as I said at the start, our mission is to help, to educate and motivate, inspire people to, you know more about the plant-based lifestyle, and to, you know, in that way then inspire other people and share the information, and just get that snowball effect. And having access to people like yourself, and having you making your time available, is absolutely priceless to our mission and what we're trying to do, and us doing our little bit in the world to make a difference.
Well, I love what you're doing, Dave. I think it's fantastic. I'm really excited for you and your new venture next year as well. So thank you so much for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you. So everybody, thank you for being on. You know, again, thank you for investing your time to come on this show. Keep spreading the word about it. Tell people about it. Again, it's every single week with different people on, whether it be athletes, business people, ordinary individuals who just have adopted a plant-based lifestyle are just willing to share their own personal journey. You know, keep spreading the word. You know, as we both have said on this call, if we all do a little bit, it's going to make a big difference. So that's a little bit I'd love you to do for me. So keep spreading it out there. Check us out on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and all over the place. We're all over social media, and just help us to keep growing our community. And whatever your reason, go vegan, grow. Save yourself, save animals, save the planet.